we have people here at home that are really struggling. For example, those that are still sleeping in tents after some of the hurricanes, and it's cold winter time. And so I think you can recognize, and I'm sure you recognize, the importance of taking care of our own people.
In answer to the question, the reason LGBTQ is the focus is because that's what became the focus of USAID and State Department. It was not the exception, it was the rule. We're just reading off the lists of grants and pages and pages and pages more.
The American people really deserve not to have their tax dollars spent on the programs that Chairman Mast mentioned earlier in his opening statement. And I really appreciated Emeritus McCall reminding us about how the USAID came about. And it was really initially created, as was said, to combat the Soviet Union and their efforts to spread communism around the world. So it's disappointing to hear about the billions of dollars being distributed to foreign countries, and some of those are our adversaries, that without really accomplishing our mission. So we have people here at home that are really struggling. For example, those that are still sleeping in tents after some of the hurricanes, and it's cold winter time. And so I think you can recognize, and I'm sure you recognize, the importance of taking care of our own people.
Chair now recognizes Representative Jayapal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Over the past 2 weeks, the Trump administration and unelected billionaire Elon Musk have led a reckless and illegal attack
on USAID, freezing funds for an agency that, in the past words of the Republicans' own witness, Mr. Primorac, quote, increase country self-reliance and resilience, all while advancing American values and interests.
Stopping USAID's work jeopardizes millions of lives and billions of dollars of investments in American small businesses and farms, all while undermining our national security, diplomatic efforts, and global influence.
It's great to be on this committee. Before coming to Congress, I actually spent many years working for a Seattle-based global health nonprofit organization
that employs about 1,600 people in my district as well as around the world, and many of our partners were USAID funded, and so I got to see firsthand the direct impact of effective USAID programs and life-saving work all over the world. The devastation that's being caused by this irresponsible funding freeze is alarming and painful. Even though Secretary Rubio did backtrack from Trump's order and said that life-saving humanitarian work would be exempt from the freeze on foreign aid through a complicated waiver process, that process has been a mess. Funding has stayed frozen, even for programs with a waiver. And now there's a new directive that again puts any approvals for these waivers on hold. Drug deliveries have been stopped, life-saving food is rotting at ports, and we have abandoned people with experimental drugs and medical products in their bodies, cutting them off from the researchers who supervise their care. So let's be clear, this conspiracy theory-driven liquidation by DOJ is about trying to come up with spending cuts. That's the other committee I'm running back and forth between. However minor in the grand scheme of things, that they hope will finance the extension of Trump Tax Scam 2.0, the effort to make American taxpayers pay for tax cuts for the wealthiest. Dangerously, it's also about fueling an erroneous belief that America spends too much on foreign aid that does not serve American interests.
If you ask any American, or the average American in this country, how much we spend, they'll say 25%
of our federal budget is going to foreign aid, and I'll tell you what, give me a number that you would be willing to spend on foreign aid, and we'll agree to spend it. And they'll say 10%. But guess what? We actually don't even spend 0.75% of our entire federal budget on foreign assistance. And so the reality is that USAID spends much less than most Americans think, and the impact for that tiny amount of money is extremely important for our diplomatic efforts, for our national security, and for our relationships and global presence on the stage. Mr. Matsios, you are the former Massachusetts Republican Party chair. You served as the U.S. administrator under George W. Bush. Can you briefly explain why the average American should care about USAID money and work, and what are the benefits to the average American?
And I have a couple questions for you, so just be brief, please.